Okay, and here we are. Welcome, everybody.
Hello, I am Miriam, and this is Chris from Keto Chow, and we have a guest today.
Yes, we do. So you're Jamie Seeman, right?
I am indeed. I am indeed. It's so good to be here, Chris and Miriam.
And well, we almost met you a couple years ago at the Omaha Summit.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
You were competing in something. We got to meet your amazing husband. He was
Yeah,
super
he's so
fun.
nice. We got to go to your
Um,
house.
but then we actually got to meet you. It might have been at the
I
following
I
Omaha
met her
Summit.
at Metabolic Health Summit.
Oh, that's right. Metabolic Health Summit. Nice. But so for those in our audience that don't know who you are, can you tell them who you are?
Absolutely. So, my name is Dr. Jaime Seeman. I work every day as an OBGYN. So, I deliver babies, I do surgery, I take care of women, everybody from teenagers to older women. But a number of years ago, I went through some of my own health struggles, was diagnosed with prediabetes and hypothyroidism, two conditions that I treat very frequently in my own
Wow.
patients. Doctors are patients too. And in 2016, I kind of set out on a journey to try to figure this out on my own. As physicians, we're really only armed with a certain number of tools. And I just felt like in traditional medicine, how could I have these conditions? I learned how to treat these, right? How did this happen? So, set out on this personal journey and fell into the ketogenic diet and started feeling amazing. Started to really change the way I practiced medicine, went back and completed an integrative medicine fellowship, became board certified in ketogenic therapies, and it has just completely taken me on another trajectory in life. I started this social media really to just show my authentic self with the world because, like I said, doctors are patients.
Hmm.
And it's really opened all up a lot of doors and opportunities for me, which I have a limited time, but I do it because the ability to reach so many people around the world, different countries, different states in the United States, the reach is so valuable because these are messages that are not getting talked about in the clinic rooms and the doctor's offices and hospitals.
Yeah. Okay, hold on. I'm going to turn off echo cancellation. Somebody was complaining about echo. I'm not hearing any
Okay,
echo,
we'll see
but
if that's better.
yeah.
It's never a good live stream without
Live,
technical
live streams
difficulties,
always
right?
have problems, right? And you're
I
joining
know.
the amazing mobile office, and right?
Yeah, this is you guys, this is my life right here.
Well,
I start my
you're
days early and end them late.
you're doing in between what it was softball you said?
Yep, I've got three daughters, and they're all softball players. So we're in between games for my oldest daughter tonight. So in
Nice.
between all the doctoring, I have to be a mom too, and I love my kids, and honestly, it's why I do what I do.
That's awesome. Now we do have one of our employees, Lynette. She's in the chat. She loves to tell the story that so she was a softball player in high school, and the baseball team challenged the softball team,
Ah,
and she pitched a no hitter.
I love it. I love it. It's not the same sport. It's not the same sport. It's not the girls' version of it's not the girls' version of baseball. The pitchers are the movement on the ball and the reaction time is like incredibly different.
Yeah. All right. So Miriam, you're a lady.
I'm
Jamie's a
I'm
lady.
a lady.
Do you
You're
have
a
questions
lady.
for Jamie?
Well, actually, I wanted to talk about so we've got underneath you drfitandfabulous.com, Dr. Fit and Fabulous. That's your Instagram. Do you have a YouTube channel too?
I do. I have a YouTube channel. I've got a podcast. I'm most active on Instagram. There's just so many different social medias these days. It's hard to like be good at all of them. I need somebody to teach me.
Well,
But
I would recommend that you don't.
Yeah.
okay,
Don't try to cover them all because
good. I don't have the capacity.
pick which ones you like the best. Pick which ones your audience are because there's always new ones that pop up. There's like one called Lemon 8 now or something like
Oh
that or Lemon
wow.
10. Anyway, uh, uh, do your thing on Instagram. That's my 2 cents. But anyway, sorry, Miriam.
So the Hard to Kill Summit. So that's your baby. So why don't you
It
tell us about
is.
that? We call
It
it
is.
Omaha a lot.
Yeah, so we rebranded to a year ago now. It used to be Keto Summit Omaha. We started the conference because, we're in Nebraska. Omaha, Nebraska is where I practice. And when the ketogenic diet became such a hot thing, it was like the most highly Googled, word in 2018.
Ooh, it's so
The
hot right
coast,
now.
the East Coast, the West Coast, KetoCon was in Texas, and there was like no love for the Midwest, and people really need, this education everywhere. So we said, let's start something here in Omaha. Let's bring speakers in that can help educate people. So you made a reference at the beginning of the live about how I had a conference and wasn't there. You guys, this is a true story. I went through the planning of Keto Summit Omaha, put my name behind it. I asked the speakers to come. We had all these amazing vendors and sponsors, and literally like 3 weeks really before the conference was supposed to happen, I got word that I was going to need to be somewhere. And it was an opportunity of a lifetime that I couldn't even tell people where I was going. So within 10 days of this conference, I had to send out an email with a video kind of saying, you guys, please trust me, I'm not going to be there. And then thankfully, not thankfully, but when the pandemic happened, I got to tell the world sooner rather than later. But had the opportunity to try out for Titan Games with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, and that's why I couldn't be there. But it was so surreal because like all these people were at my house and at the conference, and Real Salt made this like cutout of me, and people were taking pictures with it
It
and
was
putting
so
it on
cute.
social media. It was like so surreal. But thankfully I was there the next year, and last year we rebranded Hard to Kill Summit. So I wrote a book last year called Hard to Kill. And the rebranding really was to kind of open up everybody's mind to the idea that it's not just about diet, right? Like you can have this perfect ketogenic diet, but if you're not sleeping well and you're not exercising and you're not creating resiliency from stress and all these other things that are kind of little pieces of the metabolic puzzle, then you're really you're not going to optimize your health in the best way possible. So we rebranded Hard to Kill Summit to allow the opportunity for other speakers that don't just talk about the ketogenic diet to come in, so they can talk about building muscle and talk about other applications of the ketogenic diet. Like Chris Palmer last year was incredible, and he'll be back at this year's summit.
Nice.
But it's happening in Omaha last weekend of July 28th and 29th. It'll be a full 2 days this year because it's really hard to pack. It's always that fine line of not overwhelming people, because I know how exhausting an entire day of listening to speakers can be.
It's the fire hose right there.
It
Yeah.
is, but we're keeping the presentations shorter so that people can hear from more incredible speakers and have the opportunity to connect. I think that community is so important. Nobody wants to sit there and just listen to people talk all day. We want people to be able to ask questions and interact and just hang out with other like-minded individuals. I mean, I think that the energy last year was like it was so infective, when you get around people, that just the synergy in the room is just incredible. And we want people to meet vendors like yourself that, have really, really great products that can change people's lives. So it's happening in July, Hard to Kill Summit, and I promise I will be there. I'm not leaving to go hang out with The Rock. uh, it's gonna be awesome. We have old speakers coming back, we have new speakers coming in, and the program is coming together. It's gonna be really fun.
Now it's technically an Elkhorn, right?
Yeah, so and that's where I live. It's not in my backyard, but it's close. It's Elkhorn technically was annexed by the city of Omaha. So if you mail a package, it's very weird. I don't know where everybody lives, if this has happened to you in your city, but you do have to write Elkhorn, Nebraska when you mail a letter there. The U.S. Postal Service doesn't like it when you say Omaha, but really technically it's part of Omaha. So it's in Omaha. If you guys open up your maps, we don't drive covered wagons. We're a big metropolitan area. We've got a great airport, but it is out in very West Omaha.
And there's good steak there too.
Yeah.
We have beef, you guys. We have really, really good cattle and beef here.
So something that I think is really cool that you've attached to the summit, are you doing the 50-mile march this year?
Yeah, so we are doing the 50-mile march this year, but we have decided to spread the two events out just a little bit. For myself
Okay.
and our MC, Jay Morales, big shout out to Jay. He has MC'd this event every year, and he is so wonderful. Him and I are both involved with the 50-mile march, which raises money for homeless veterans. And this was actually Jay's idea when he turned 50, that he wanted to walk 50 miles and raise $2,500, just kind of like a little thing, to do. And it has exploded into this giant thing. We've, this will be the fourth year that we do it as well.
Wow.
And we will have over 60 walkers. Last year, we raised close to like $260,000
Oh, wow.
for homeless veterans. And this year, we're on pace to be well over $1 million. And we're an official nonprofit now. And we are looking at building, I guess you could call it almost like a tiny village for homeless veterans in our community. And the goal of it is to get homeless veterans off the street and reintegrated back into their communities, and to get them back into their families, because these are people that have served our country. And the rate of mental health disorders and homelessness amongst our vets is super high. I never realized it before getting involved with this mission. And these are people that are too proud to ask for help. So the 50-mile march is just symbolic of the suffrage that these people go through. And so we literally walk 50 miles from the state capitol in Lincoln to Omaha, Nebraska. We walk through the night, and, we're like live streaming it like this, and we're asking people to donate money. But corporations have really stepped up in a huge way for us and allowed us to move forward with, trying to acquire land and to build, all of these homes for these veterans. So the 50-mile march is happening, but it's actually going to happen at the end of August, because Jay and I need a little bit of time to recover between the summit and the march to rest our feet. Last year it was back to back, and it was a mental stamina. It was taxing on us. I can't lie.
Oh, yeah.
So how do we donate? Like, people who aren't walking, how can they donate?
So we have an official website, 50milemarch.org. They can go to the Facebook page, and there's Instagram, 50 Mile March, and you'll see the donation links on there. Every single walker also has a personal link, because we do not accept walkers where this is just like a physical feat for them. It's not about the ability to walk 50 miles. It's about being invested in the mission. And part of the requirement of every single walker is to raise a minimum of $2,500. And if they don't raise $2,500, they write a check for $2,500. So it's a personal
there you go.
commitment. Yeah, it's a personal commitment. And Operation Noble Forge, we've got the website right here. We also have an incredible number of volunteers. So nobody that's involved with the 50 Mile March Foundation gets paid a dime. So we, every single penny raised goes towards the mission and towards the people that we are supporting. So when we do the walk, like, we have companies that have donated RVs, people donate, water, and Keto Brick, Redmond Relight have thrown in things for the walkers. And it's incredible. We call them the hospitality crew. The first year we did this, there was only 6 walkers, and we laugh now because we were literally like 6 random people walking along the side of the highway. We got stopped by 3 police organizations. They're like,
Are you
"What
serious?
are you doing?" They're like, "What are you doing?" We're like, "Oh, we're walking from Lincoln to Omaha to raise money for homeless veterans." And they're like, "You're gonna get killed. Like, what are you doing out here?" We're like, "No, it's for a good cause. Can you give us like a police escort?" And they were like, "No."
No.
But now we actually have a lot of support from law enforcement.
Wow.
Last year we had a motorcycle, like a motorcade, that took us in the last mile to the finish line. There was hundreds of people at the finish line. It was literally, I mean, I had tears streaming down my face, not because my feet hurt so bad, but just like the pride of, our country, and supporting the people that, have really given a lot of sacrifice for protecting our freedoms. It was really moving. It was really moving when you realize that what you're involved in is so much bigger than you. And we've gotten so many requests for, can you do the 50 Mile March in another state? man, if anybody wants to start this up in their state, we'll help you in whatever way we can. But just this one little crazy idea has turned into such a big thing, and it's really fun to be a part of it.
That's so awesome.
That's
I'm
really
glad
cool.
to hear that. Thank you. So we'll make sure to post about it when it happens. So people
Yeah, I'm
can
sure people
follow up.
listening, it seems like everybody knows somebody that's served our country. And we love and appreciate you and your families too, because it's more than just the veterans. You know, there's a lot of people that are affected when they come home and need help.
Cool.
For sure. Your turn.
My turn? Okay. So let's talk about women's health, because I don't know anything about it, right? No. I have many daughters and mothers. In fact, most of the people that I like most in the world happen to be women. It's amazing.
Okay. Yeah, we're good people. We're good people.
Yeah. So do you deal with a lot of women who are dealing with, like, say, PCOS and things like that as well?
Yeah, it's a common problem. I myself was told I had PCOS. So back when
Oh,
we were trying to get pregnant with my first daughter. So I come from like a family of diabetics, but like normal BMI, like people that
okay.
you wouldn't, we weren't obese, but there's definitely some insulin resistance genes in my lineage. So I came off birth control like most college girls do and wanted to start a family with my husband, and I was not cycling. I wasn't having any periods, which is a problem if you're trying to get pregnant. Um, so my doctor was like, "Well, I think you have PCOS," and wanted to start me on
Can you
met.
briefly explain what that is for the
Oh, okay.
dudes in
Yes.
the audience who don't
Break it
know?
down. Let's break it
Right?
down.
Yeah.
So PCOS stands for polycystic ovarian syndrome, which is a horrible name for what it is. So it is a constellation of symptoms. You have to have three of these to get the diagnosis of PCOS medically. So the first one is what we call hyperandrogenism. So this is where either clinically you have clinical signs, which could be like, I love this, you guys. Somebody's taillights.
Yeah.
I'm getting free red light therapy right now.
It's amazing.
Um, the first one is where you either have like acne or dark hair growth. Now, this is more than just like typical acne. The hair patterns of people who have PCOS, they tend to get like facial hair, or they get hair like around their navel down into the like pubic hair area. It's more than normal, okay, and your doctor would be able to make this assessment. Or like really, deep cystic acne that's very refractory to treatment, or your doctor's checked your labs and you have high levels of what we call androgen hormones, which are, people call them male type hormones, but women make them. They're just not supposed to make them in the amounts that men do.
Yeah.
So you have to have that. And then you have to be missing periods. We call that oligomenorrhea or amenorrhea. So like no periods at all, or you're missing periods. And that's because you're not ovulating. And then the third one would be polycystic ovaries. Now there's some debate that we want to take this off the table as far as part of the diagnostic criteria, but you essentially have to have two out of those three. And it is one of the most common reasons for infertility in the United States. And here's the deal with PCOS is it is a disease of insulin resistance. But notice how I didn't say that was part of the criteria. And this is where it gets confusing, because it's kind of a chicken or the egg story. Do you get PCOS and then have infertility, or do you get insulin resistance and then develop PCOS? And really, honestly, it doesn't matter which way it is. But it is a common reason for infertility. So in my situation, my doctor said, let's start you on metformin, right, which is a diabetes medication. And if that doesn't work, then we'll give you a medicine called Clomid, which is a medicine that's
Yes.
used in the infertility world to help people ovulate. And so that's great and all. It is definitely a tool that we use to help patients with PCOS ovulate and to get pregnant. There's also another medication called Femara or Letrozole. But the real problem is that in these patients, if you get them pregnant and they haven't really addressed the issue of insulin resistance, their risk of things like gestational diabetes, preeclampsia, complications in their pregnancy are significantly higher. And then outside of pregnancy, their risk of cardiovascular disease, high blood pressure, type 2 diabetes, all of these things are significantly increased over their lifetime. So this is a real problem when patients are given this diagnosis and not really given tools to fix it besides, maybe going on birth control or here, just take these medications, will help you get pregnant. At the end of the day, lifestyle interventions are so important for these patients. So it's important to let your doctor check some labs, check some fasting labs, and really kind of dive deep into why you might not be cycling or why you're having these hormonal dysregulations. Because there are other medical things that can be confused with PCOS. So you really want to figure it out.
So if somebody has PCOS or some of those symptoms, in your medical opinion, what's the best thing that they can do to treat that?
Well, for not even just PCOS, but all things in my clinic, I practice a little differently than other doctors. But for me, I'm very prevention forward. So what that means is lifestyle. And this book that I wrote called Hard to Kill, it talks about kind of the foundational principles of your health. So we can apply it to PCOS, for instance. So the first pillar is nutrition. So patients with PCOS have insulin resistance. And one of the quickest ways to reverse insulin resistance is by modifying the diet to remove carbohydrates. And when you remove carbohydrates, you have to add something back into the diet. And that's adding healthier fats and protein to the diet. So a low carb or ketogenic diet is a very quick way to restore insulin sensitivity and to get these women ovulating. And there's clinical data that backs this. I'm not pulling it out of thin air. There's scientific studies that have looked at the applications of ketogenic diet, and it improves all biomarkers. It restores ovulation, and some of the women in the trials accidentally got pregnant.
Oh,
that had infertility. The second pillar is movement and exercise. So we know that in patients with PCOS that they lose just 10% body weight through any form of diet or exercise, they tend to restore ovulation. And so exercise, particularly resistance training, because PCOS patients can use those androgens like testosterone to their advantage. They tend to gain muscle very easily. It's a great thing for these patients to do.
Wow.
And then, things like sleep, dealing with stress, other things that might be causing endocrine disruption. Maybe they're microwaving their food in plastic containers. Maybe they're drinking out of plastic water bottles. There's lots of other things that could be at play here. But for me, the very first step is to look at the lifestyle and figure out what we can improve. And we know that lifestyle modification is hard. We know that changing our daily habits is really hard. But these are things that can have a profound impact because they're things we do every day, right? We eat a couple times a day usually. So these are easy, like what I think of as low-hanging fruit. And then when we've tried these things and we haven't gotten where we need to get, then that's where Western medicine is great, that we have medications like Clomid and Femara. And sometimes these patients do need medications, but I think offering lifestyle intervention should be the first step for all of these patients because it really can make a huge impact.
Now you have a lot of clinical experience treating people. So whether or not the studies, hey, we got somebody in the car now?
I was like, no, I'm trying to get a
okay.
light on my face for you guys.
Oh, thank you. But whether or not, there are studies out there that show stuff or not, you guys are boots on the ground actually seeing these changes happening in women's lives.
Yeah, no, I mean, I see multiple patients per day with this exact problem. And it works. It works in these patients. We are able to help them get pregnant. They're able to have healthy pregnancies and healthy babies. So yeah, this isn't just a study that I read. I have used and applied this in my own life and in real patients, and it works. It really does work.
That's awesome. Do you want to ask any questions? I tend to dominate these interviews.
I know, but
so
he just has a nice voice, so it's fine.
You do have a great interview voice.
They say I have a face for radio. It's amazing. And Joe put the link to your Hard to Kill book.
Oh,
up in
thank
the chat.
you. Yeah, so
that's
just
super
on
kind.
Amazon.
Yes, you can get it on Amazon. It is on Audible. I did not realize how many people loved Audible. When the book came out, we had not recorded the Audible yet, and people were like, "When's the Audible coming?" And so I bit the bullet. It is recorded in my own voice.
Oh, you read it. Wow.
I don't know what the medical term is, but I can't stand the sound of my own voice. So God bless you all for wanting to listen to it in my own voice. But yes, it's Audible's out. You can buy it in bookstores too, but of course that's only if they order it and stock it. And it's available in multiple countries. We're working on maybe getting it in another language, hopefully maybe Spanish. So.
Okay.
That's awesome.
That is super awesome.
When did you write that?
Well, it's a long process. It is a very vulnerable process too, writing a book. You know, you feel like you're, it's like sending your baby out into the world.
Yeah.
So it took a year or two of kind of writing and figuring out, you know, exactly what I wanted to put out there first. You know, I had so many ideas. I mean, working in women's health, it's like, do I make a pregnancy book? You know, do I, and who knows, there may be some spinoffs in the future that we might be working on. But it was a long process. And then the publishing process, I learned so much about book writing. You know, I could tell the good, bad, and ugly, but I decided to self-publish.
Oh, wow.
And it's going great. And it's so much fun to hear the stories and the messages and the emails from people who were like, oh my gosh, I got your book. And you know, we made these changes or my husband, or I bought it for my daughter. And it's really cool to see it out there in the world getting used and applied.
Yeah.
That's so awesome.
A bunch of people say no one likes to hear their own voice. I think if you do enough live streams,
Yeah, you
you
get
get
used to
over
it.
that.
Yeah. That doesn't mean
I just never
mean you
listen
like
to the
it.
replays.
Right.
You're like, it's over.
Okay, so we had someone else commented earlier that said meat and weights.
Yes. That is, I use that hashtag a lot on social media because people are like, oh my God, what is your secret? And I always respond, meat and weights, because it's really two things that women don't prioritize. So women in particular are very bad at eating protein. We just are. I don't know why. I don't know if like steak and meat is like is a manly thing, like in the home or what, but women are chronically under eating protein.
Yeah.
And that is a problem because as we age, we start losing our muscle mass around age 30. And as we lose our muscle mass, that is one of the biggest risks to our metabolic health because muscle is a great disposal agent for glucose. And so when we have insulin problems and we have insulin resistance and we have glucose problems, muscle is very protective of that. And then weights, I mean, women are addicted to cardio, right? Even if we schedule 30, 45, 60 minutes, right? We want to go to aerobic classes. We want to get on the treadmill. We want to get on the elliptical. We think that we have to, you know, just exercise for long periods of time. And hey, ladies, I'm telling you right now, my schedule is packed. I only have this much time in my day. And if you want more bang for your buck, for your lifting heavy things, lifting weights is where it's at because once again, as we age, we got to protect our muscles. We got to protect our bones. We don't want to be frail and weak and break a hip. And so meat and weights is where it's at.
I've heard a lot of women who say that they don't want to lift weights because they don't want to get like big
true.
and bulky.
Or like too big for your sleeves, right?
Do you see that as a concern?
I'll tell you right now, I dare you to try. When you go to Instagram or social media and you look at these women that have these like incredibly muscular physiques, it takes years of training to achieve what they have achieved. And it's a genetic potential how big you can kind of grow essentially with bodybuilding and with weightlifting. And for most women, they trust me, you will love your body more if you work on building muscle and quit worrying about just being thin. I feel like we've really just been sold this message that women should be thin or, you know, skinny or whatever the terminology you want to use. And I think that's what scares women away from lifting weights is they want to be thin. I totally grew up, you guys, in the 80s and 90s when I'm going to just call it like cocaine chic. It was like, that was the thing.
Right,
it was like
right.
These women on the front of the magazines, they weren't lifting weights, right? They didn't tell me like as a little girl that it was cool to lift weights and to have
Mhm.
muscles. You know, they definitely sold me a message of being skinny, and I will be the first to admit I was a collegiate athlete. I lifted a lot of weights, and the first thing I wanted to do when I graduated from college and went to medical school, I vowed to never pick up another weight. I wanted to lose my muscle. I wanted my quads to shrink. I wanted to
Really?
just be a doctor. I wanted that, thinness or whatever it was. But as soon as I stopped lifting weights, I started to struggle. That's actually when I developed insulin resistance. It's when I was on my like path to prediabetes and hypothyroidism. Um, and I wish I never would have done that, but you live and you learn. And I 100%, it was like societal influence. And I have 3 daughters, and I want them to see physically strong women as role models in their life. Women can lift heavy things. We can do physically, our bodies were designed to do physically hard things. And I think beyond just building muscle, I think that weightlifting really teaches you too a lot about getting into difficult situations. I mean, I think there's just like some mental fortitude that's learned by doing things that seem intimidating or that you're not good at, or kind of pushing yourself past that limit where you say, "Oh, I don't want to do one more rep," right? We could apply that to a lot of areas of our life, right? So I think that there's a lot for little girls to learn by getting into exercise and resistance training even at a young age. And I hope my girls, maybe they don't think their mom's as cool. I'm sure I'll go through a stage, right, where I'm not like I'm not the cool person, but I hope they find other women in their life that inspire them. And muscle is not for men, you guys. Muscle is for women too.
So here's something that I'm kind of struggling with. I've been training with Robert, so I've been lifting
Ah,
a lot, and I can tell like things are changing. Definitely, like I'm not as squishy up here. I feel amazing, but it's this number on the scale that's killing me, right? Because
yeah,
I've only really gone down 10 pounds, but
yeah.
I can tell things are totally different and
Yep.
hopefully moving in the right direction. But that number is not going down, which is super
Yeah.
depressing because muscle weighs more.
Yeah. So here's the deal. We are so obsessed with the scale, and many people who get on a weight loss journey, that is like a notch in your belt. Just watching anybody that has lost, I have watched my own mother lose the same 100 pounds like 3 times in her lifetime. And I remember one time, I mean, she had a paperclip chain like she was making, and every 10 pounds was a colored paperclip, right?
Right.
And although, that seems to be a good objective measure, of success. And of course, you go to your doctor's office. What do? You get on the scale and weigh. The scale is really not giving you a lot of good information. And that's just the kind of hard, honest truth. What we really need to focus on is body composition, because if somebody loses 100 pounds, statistically speaking, about 30% of that is muscle and not fat.
Okay.
And so if you lose 100 pounds, or even if you lose 10 pounds, but you lose 3 pounds of muscle, over time, as you continue, if you don't ever work on building that muscle back, you become kind of what we refer to as like skinny fat, right? Kind of this idea of like skinny and being thin and whatever. And so what I would love people listening to think about is maybe getting a body composition test done and find out, what is your body fat percentage? How many pounds of muscle do you have on your body? How many pounds of fat do you have on your body? And how much visceral fat do you have? That's a kind of fat that is like deep down inside our tummies that lives around our organs. It's different than subcutaneous fat, which is the fat you can like pinch on your thighs and
Mhm.
your arms. And that's what we focus on, right? What we can see in the mirror, all that fat. Um,
Mhm.
but it doesn't really tell the picture of metabolic health that we're referring to multiple times on this live. And so that is the thing, is as you kind of get to a more let me turn this light back on, you guys. This is this is parking lot live right now. As you kind of get to a closer, what I would say like maybe like a goal weight, then you need to kind of throw the scale away and you need to start focusing on body composition, maybe taking measurements, taking pictures, getting some kind of body composition scan, because that is really a more accurate story of what's going on. and it will keep you from getting discouraged by the scale maybe going up, because the scale might go up when you start getting maybe into a caloric surplus and your coach is trying to build muscle. It's hard to build muscle in a deep calorie deficit. And for people that have lost a lot of weight, sometimes it's hard for them to think about eating more calories. They're afraid. They're afraid they're going to go back to where they came from. And when you want to build muscle, you got to give your body a lot of building blocks.
Yeah, so thanks for saying that. I think it's just kind of, you almost need to change your mindset around it too.
Yeah,
And just
it's a total mind game. It's a total mind game.
So, what are some good ways for people to start? Because, I mean, you can just walk over and pick up weights and start skipping leg day, but
Yeah. So, the cool thing is there's a lot of ways you can stimulate muscle tissue. So, when you're first starting, even body weight exercises can sometimes provide a lot of, the key here is how long does it take you to get the stimulus? Because what we're looking for is that one repetition where your bicep is like, oh my gosh, I can't do one more. I hurt, right? It starts burning. That's like that mental part where you're like, your brain's like, oh, I think we're good. That's exactly where the change is starting to happen. And that's the point where you actually want to do one more rep, one more rep. So for most people, it's hard for them to get to that point. A lot of people are doing very ineffective resistance training, and you can do it in a short amount of time, but sometimes you can achieve it with body weight when you're first starting. Then you could think about moving up to maybe like dumbbells, resistance bands. There are ways you can do this right in your own living room. You don't need, big fancy equipment.
jugs of water.
Jugs of water, backpacks. Yeah. And then of course, it's longer. You're going to want to get more advanced. You're going to start training with free weights and kettlebells because you're having so much fun. I love trying new things, but sometimes, there is such a plethora of options out there for people. You can do Beachbody on demand. You can get a trainer at the gym. But what I say is when you're starting, find a friend in your life that is fitter than you and hang out with them and tell them you want to go to the gym with them in the morning and start to learn from them and feed off their information. It's just like if I wanted to learn how to be a good stock investor, right? I would go find somebody that knows a heck of a lot more than I do. So don't think that you have to learn to do this on your own. There are plenty of really good experts out there, even people online on social media, but find somebody that knows what they're doing that can teach you. And then like I said, as you get more comfortable with it, you're going to want to start to do more advanced things, but don't be intimidated by the crazy fit people at the gym. They all started somewhere. We are all on our journey somewhere. And there are plenty of really kind people out there that want to help you.
Thank you. So what I was thinking before you asked that, which is quite similar. No, you're totally fine. Is if you have mobility issues, if it's really hard even just to walk around, like what could some exercises be for that?
Yeah. So there are definitely lots of modifications, like if you can't walk, you can still use your arms. But I find too that, let's figure out why you're hurting so bad, because sometimes finding ways to reduce inflammation and things like that, and to get people moving again. Our joints aren't made to hurt like that, but like I said, everybody starts at a different place on their journey. Some people, maybe you want to start in the water because that takes a lot of pressure off your joints.
Right.
Or maybe you want to start doing bike sprints on a recumbent bike instead of doing, walking or running. There are lots of different modifications and ways that you can move your body that hopefully don't hurt. But I think you'll find as you get fitter that things start hurting a little bit less. And some people are afraid of that kind of like that sore feeling the next day. And I'll tell you, with time, that starts to get better.
Yeah.
And you might need a little bit more recovery when you're first starting. But everybody starts somewhere, and your goal is to just get a little bit better each day. Like think of it as like one more step each day. and those aches and pains will start to go away as you get stronger.
Yeah, and I noticed too, like it wasn't till recently that I kind of got that high before I went to the gym.
Mm.
It's always been like I'm like all of these exercise people are crazy, right? And I thought, well, I don't see why they love it. I just don't because I would exercise and then I would feel better, but it was like dragging myself to get there for
Yeah.
years and years, and it wasn't until Robert's program until it's probably like, I don't know, maybe 2 months ago that I was like popping myself to the gym. I was like hopping
Oh,
and
yeah.
dancing. And I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, this is it. This is what the people are like. Like, that's what they
Yes.
feel. And it wasn't until I put the work in that I finally saw that. And then it's even easier to move on. So I wonder if that's, just similar to the fact that you're saying that the soreness is not quite as bad as when you first start and you're like, oh, I'm sore, I can't walk, I can't sit, no sitting, like I can't, so it's kind of interesting.
Well, and the truth is, listen, I get up at 4:30. I go to the gym at like 5:30 in the morning every single day. You guys, I don't feel like it some mornings. I mean, that's just the honest truth sometimes
Mm-hmm.
is I call it pay yourself first. I go because I know that is what is going to give me energy for the day. At the end of the day, it's going to make me feel better. But sometimes you have to do things you don't want to do. And that is called parenting yourself. I mean, right? Like when you're
Right.
a kid, if you could just get away with like staying up late and sleeping in and just like, eating
Not
mac
cleaning
and
out the
cheese and chicken
dishwasher.
nuggets and yeah, not doing your laundry, emptying the dishwasher, right? My kids could probably name like 100 things. But when we become adults, we have to parent ourselves. And sometimes it means setting your alarm and getting up and going to do something. But usually I find once I get there, right, I start to feed off the energy of other people. I start moving my body. And I think sometimes the hardest part is just putting your feet on the floor and putting your clothes on.
Yeah. And once you start doing that, you're like, well, I have to go. I got my clothes on. Like
Yeah.
I got my gym shoes on. I'm out the door.
Who was it that was
Just make
talking
it
this weekend?
non-negotiable.
Oh, it was like habit stacking. The
Yeah.
guy said a habit helper guy was talking to us, and he said that he had a guy when he pushed the coffee button, he put on his gym shorts, and so he stacked
Oh,
those habits together. And he's like, "Well, I got my gym shorts on. I guess I'm going to the gym," because
yeah.
he just had
That's a
to
good
get that
idea.
habit started, and so it was kind of a fun little thing.
It's
Yeah.
a good idea.
Well, we really appreciate you coming on with us, and we just appreciate how much you do for, the community that we love so much and your influence. So thank you so much for being on with us today
Yeah.
and all
Well,
of the stuff you do.
I want to echo that you guys are such an important part of this community and I'm sure you've changed more lives than you will ever realize with your, invention of keto chow and I really want to thank you from the bottom of my heart and I know you guys are coming to Hard to Kill Summit. You're one of our platinum sponsors. We
Mm.
love you. We love keto chow and seriously, it's from the bottom of my heart. Thank you both.
Okay. Did you have any last parting words of advice for people out there in TV land?
In TV land. Well, I just say that you know l- change the language within your mind. Hard to kill for me is kind of a mantra, of being resilient and just acknowledging that life is short and every day is a blessing. Every day I wake up breathing, every opportunity to be here doing these lives. I live a very grateful life. But figure out what that internal language is for you because when it comes to changing your behaviors in life, it's all driven by our internal language about
Hmm.
who we say who we are. Um, and having that to just fall back on days when you don't feel like doing the things you're supposed to do. Figure out that internal language about how you talk about yourself.
Awesome.
Thank you.
So for anybody out there, if you're going to be near or around Omaha, Nebraska on July 28th and 29th, I think it is.
Yes, July 28th, 29th, Omaha, Nebraska. You could fly, drive. You can't come by boat, but you can come any other way.
I mean, you could come up the Missouri River, right?
You
I
could
don't
come
know.
up the river. Yeah, I guess on that. Yeah, but no, it's in July. Tickets are on sale. The VIP tickets are almost sold out. So if you're interested in that,
Ooh.
there's an incredible VIP event with certified Piedmontese and Redmond Real Salt. They do an amazing job every year with our VIP event, and so we've got incredible speakers. Dr. Sivis is coming back, carb addiction
Oh, boy.
doc. We have a new speaker, Dr. John Jaquish is coming.
Okay.
Chris Palmer will be back, which I know everybody is so excited about because I think what he's doing in the mental health space is like revolutionary. It's really incredible. So you guys go check out the tickets. Keto Chat will be there, and yeah, we'll see everybody in July.
All right. Well, thank you. We're going to call it a night, and you all have a great night.
Bye.
Thanks,
Bye.
everybody.